Hello students, welcome to the next session. In this particular session, we are going to look on loops and iterations. Now basically what loop is that we'll see in this video. We also see what is the meaning of break and continuous statement in the Python and how it is going to be as a working things in the Python. Now for loops and iteration, you already know what a loop is. Loop is something that repeats itself until the condition is matched. So the syntax of loop in Python is, for example, if you're talking about for loops, for loop you'll write for, and where we write in C programming, what we write is for I equals to 0, I is less than n, and I plus plus. So for example, for I in something. Now what this in function is, what is the meaning of in function, that we must know first. So what is the meaning of in function? In function is the function that is the membership function, that thing that checks something inside something. In is a membership function in Python. In and not in, these two are the membership function in Python. For example, let's say we are checking if a in AEIOU. For example, we are checking this, and now we are printing found. So now what is going to be happen? And let's say there is another part, else we are print not found. So if we run this code, okay, there was a spelling mistake. So for A in AEIOU, we're checking whether A belongs to this thing or not. So what in operator does is, it is a membership function that check, suppose this is the x variable, this is the y variable, that checks x in y. So that means A is the character that is inside AEIOU. If we remove this from here, and now if we run this again, it is not found because A does not belongs to EIOU. So this is how in operator works. Now suppose this was the in operator. Now we talk about a not in operator. If A not in AEIOU, so if this condition is true, that means, let's say this is true, and this condition it will print as false. Now if we run this code, it is true because we are checking whether A is in EIOU or not in EIOU. So the condition is true because A does not belongs to EIOU. So now moving forward, again, if we take A again over here, so what will happen? Now we run this, A not in AIO, condition becomes false because A is available over here. So this is how in and not in operator works in Python. It is known as membership operators. So let's say for loops, there is also function that you must know. Suppose there is a function, there is a program you need a loop for, but before learning how loop is going to be work in Python and how loop is working in Python, you must know the range function. So range function is a function that takes one argument as well as two arguments as well as three arguments also. For example, if you are giving only three arguments, like there are three arguments, let's say 1, 10 and 1. What is the meaning of this? So the meaning of this is, first argument is the starting point. Second argument is the limit. And the last argument is the step increment, let's say. So there are three arguments: starting point, limit, and step increment. So in this example, 1 is the starting point, 10 is the limit, and 1 is every time it is increased by 1. So these are the arguments if you're passing three arguments. The first will be the starting point, second will be the limit, and third will be the step increment. So every time it is going to be increased by 1. Now suppose what happens if you are only passing two arguments. Suppose there is something like this, 1 and 10, for example. So if you are passing this, so what is going to be happen? 1 is the starting point, 1 is the starting point, and 1 is the starting point, and okay, there is okay, and 10 is the limit. 10 is the limit, and by default it is going to be increased by 1. So this is not basically a program, but it is for your understanding. So how the range function is going to be work. So if you are passing 3 arguments, so the first argument will be denoting the starting point, second argument will be denoting the limit till when it is going to be happen, and the last argument will be denoting the step increment. So it is going to be starting from 1, it will go up to 10, and it will going to be increased 1 by every time. When you are passing only single 2 arguments, so in that case, what is going to be happen, first argument will be treated as the starting point, and the last argument will be treated as the limit, and by default it is going to be increased by 1. Now moving forward, when you are passing only single argument, let's say there is only single argument, in this case what is going to be happen, 10 is the limit, 10 is the limit, and by default it is going to be increased by 1, and by default it is going to be started from 0. So here we were specifying what is the starting point, here also we were specifying what was the starting point, but when we have not specified any starting point, by default it is going to be started from 0, and by default if we are not specifying any step increment, that means simply in the terms of I++ or I+2 or I equals to I+3, we are not specifying any increment, then by default it is going to be increased by 1. So this is how the range function works. So let's take an example. If you want to copy this, you can copy this, because this is important and you must know this. And now moving forward, so let's take an example. Suppose we want to print numbers from 1 to, let's say 0 to 9, for example. The first time we want to print the number from 0 to 9, what is going to be happen? So in this example, we'll also see what is the syntax of loops and for loop in this particular case. So let's say for I, so we are taking a range function also. For I in range, that is membership function. For I in range, let's say we want to start it from 0, go up to 10, and every time it will be increased by 1, and we are printing I. So now when we run this code, what is going to be happen? See, it is going to be started from 0, it will go up to 10, and every time it will increase by 1. So you can see it is going to be increased by 1. So what is going to be happen? This function is generating numbers, these numbers, and I is iterating through those numbers. That means the range is generating the numbers from 0 to 9, and in those 0 to 9 numbers, I is going to be iterated. So every time I has the new value. First time it has the 0, second time it has the 1, 2, 3. Now what if we are not specifying any increment? Let's say in this case, let's say we want to increase by 2. So if we run this code, you can see 0, 2, 4, 6 and 8, it is going to be increased by 2. Now suppose there is no specified increment. Now what will happen? Again, if you're not specifying anything, it is going to be increased by 1 by default. Now suppose there is nothing specified over here also, there is only one single argument. So recall that point where we discussed what will happen if we only pass single argument. So if we run this code, it will start from 0 by default, it will increase by 1 by default, and it is going to be up to 10, not 10, up to 10. So this is how a range function works. I is iterating through those numbers, and those numbers are coming one by one into the I variable, and we are printing I. So this is how this works. And in is the membership function. So this is checking the membership of I in this range, and then it is printing that. So when I is reaching 9, so remember this, whenever I is reaching 9, I is becoming 10, and 10 does not exist in this range. That's why it is stopping at 9. So this is a simple example of for loop. So this you can use also in your for loop. So suppose you want to print even numbers up to 10. So what you can do, starting point is 2, up to 10, every time it is increased by 2. So 2, 4, 6 and 8 you can say. So this is how you can print those numbers. Now suppose you want to do something like some calculation, like for you want to do there is a number, you want to calculate whether that number is a prime number or not in Python. So how you can do that? Let's make a program for that. So how you can make a program for a prime number? So basically a prime number is that number that has only two factors, that is 1 and itself. It is only divided by two numbers, that is 1 and number itself, that is a prime number. So let's say there is a number equals to 17 we have taken, and we have taken a count variable, count equals to 0. Now what is the basic approach? We want to divide that number one by one, and we want to check whether that number is getting divided or not. And then what we'll do, then we can do something like whenever the number is getting divided, we are increase the counter by 1, and then we are checking a certain value of count, and if that's true, that means that is a prime number. So prime number only getting divided by 1 and number itself. So we are doing something like this. We want to check, continuously want to divide one by one. First we'll divide 17 by 1, then we'll divide 17 by 2, then we'll divide 17 by 3 and up to 17. So if a number is a prime number, it will only be divided by 1 and number itself. So for I in range up to number, and then we are checking if num, how we check whether the number is getting perfectly divided or not. We use the modulus operator, and I equals to 0. If that case is true, that means count plus equals to 1. Remember, in Python, plus plus minus minus operators does not works in Python. So you must write whether count equals to count plus 1, or you can write in this way, count plus equals to 1. That also means count is equal to count plus 1. So whenever the number is getting divided by I, it is going to be the count is going to be increased by 1. So okay, this is the logic. Now how we'll check whether the number is prime or not? So in this case, we'll check, after the loop we'll check if count equals to 1 or 2, let's say. So in this case, what will happen? Just think for a second. The count for prime number, count will be 1 or count will be 2. So in this case, let's say we are checking for if the count equals to 1. That means print prime number. Else, in other case, just print not prime. So just think for a second whether it has to be 1 or 2. If it is 1, why it is 1, and why it is not 2. So let's run this. Okay, there is something over here. So you must start from 1. So it is the prime number. Why it is happening? Why we are not checking count equals to 2? Because it is going up to that number, it is not including that number, because 17 is not included in this number. In this range, it is starting from 1 and going up to the 16, 1 less than the number. That's why we're checking whether it is 1 or not, because when it is 1, it is only getting divided by 1 only. If we change it something like 18, so whether it is a prime number or not, it is not a prime number. Whether it changed, let's say 7, run it, it is a prime number. Now 8, it is not a prime number. So this is the basic program for example of for loop and for example of a certain problem. So you can make something like this. So this is the basic example of this. Now let's move forward and let's say we want to print all the numbers from 1 to 100 which are prime numbers. So what I'm saying, we want to print all the numbers which are prime numbers from 1 to 100. So what we can do, we are taking a number, we are not taking a number, we are taking a count variable, count equals to 0, and suppose we want to start for I in range, starting point is, if say at 1, and between 1 and 100, so 100, every time will start by 1. So for I in range 1 comma 100 comma 1, in this case I is iterating to those numbers, and let's say there is another loop for j in range, which range, j will start from 1 and it will go up to what we can say, this variable I variable, this variable I. So I, here we are writing for j in range 1 comma I. In this case what we are going to check, if I modulus j equals to 0, if that is true, we are increasing count plus equals to 1 in this case. And next we are checking over here, whether if count equals to 1 or not. If that is true, in this case what we will do, we'll print that particular number, not the prime number but that particular number, that is I. After doing this, we are resetting count equals to 0 again. So where we can reset that? We can reset that over here, count equals to 0 again. So this is the basic program for the prime number. So if we run this, you can say we have the list of all those numbers which are the prime number. So this is how you can use nested loops in Python. So basically this is basic principle of nested loops. This is the first outer loop, this is second loop, that is also known as the inner loop. Okay, so this is how you can do something like this. What if you want to print the number up to 1000? Just change it, run it. So these are all those numbers which are prime numbers between 1 to 1000. So this is how you can do this. Now this was the example of for loop. So you must know this syntax. Now what about while loop? How while loop works in this Python programming? So while loop is almost same as C. So for example, you want to check a number, we want to print the sum of the digits of a number, for example. So how we can say that? Let's say there is a sum variable. What is the basic problem statement is, for example, there is a number 567. What we have to do is we have to print the sum of these all individual digits, that is 5 plus 6 plus 7. So equals to 5 plus 6 plus 7 is equals to 18. So if there is a number, we have to print the sum of the individual digits of that number. So how we can do that? So for that, this is also the example of while loop, how you can use while loop in Python. Let's say we have a sum variable equals to 0. This problem statement you have already solved in your C programming, so you must have the logic. We are not going to discuss the logic over here because we have already discussed that in our class. So what is the basic approach? We have the sum variable equals to 0. Now we have the number equals to, for example, 6757. This is the number. Now in the next case, what we are going to do, we are going to run the loop repeatedly and we are going to sum individual digits in the sum variable. So in C, what we write for while loop, same thing we write in this over here in Python. We have to repeat this while loop again and again until the number becomes 0. So the condition is while number is not equals to 0, or we can say while the number is greater than 0. Must place colon over here. So how you can separate this digit? Just divide it by 10 and you'll get the remainder, and you'll get the remainder again, you'll get the remainder again. So this is how you will separate the individual digits. So there is a variable remainder equals to num modulus 10, num modulus 10, sum equals to sum plus remainder, sum equals to sum plus remainder. We must change the name of variable because it is already exist. Sum1, let's say sum1 and sum1 over here. So sum1 equals to sum1 plus remainder. Next case is we have separated the first digit. Next we want to update the number. So number equals to, just remember in C we only use the single slash, but in Python you must use double slash. Okay, because we have seen what is the meaning of single slash and double slash in Python. So number equals to number double slash 10, and we are going to repeat this loops continuously. And after this, what we are doing print sum1. Now if you run this code, you'll get the sum equals to 25. How it is 25? 7 plus 7 equals to 14, plus 6 equals to 20, plus 5 is 25. Alright, this is the basic syntax of while loop. Alright, and one more thing about Python is there are no curly braces. In Python there are no curly braces, so you must use this indentation. How we are getting to know that this certain block is a block of while loop? Just via the indentation. You must give the indentation. If let's say I will change the indentation to somewhere else, let's say if I change this, what will happen? We'll get the error because indentation error, that is unexpected indent. Alright, so you'll get this 34 over here. So this is how this works, while loop and the indentation also. So I advise you to do all the questions that were based on loops in C that we have done in the Python also, so for your better understanding and better practice before the examination. So these were the example of for and while loop. So there are plenty of problems that you can solve for these loops practice, and it is always less, so you must solve as many as you can. And I advise you to solve all those problems that you have solved in C for the loops and control flow. Solve those problems in Python, so you'll have a good practice. So this is how loops works in Python. Again, one more thing, this break and continue statement in Python. Break and continue. What does the break? What break does is break completely breaks out you from the loop, and what continue does is it makes you continuously going in the loop. For example, there is for I in range 5, let's say for I in range 5, and we are looking for if I equals to 5, print, or 5, not 5, if I equals to 2, print found must place inside quotes, print found. The else case you must write, and for break you write break, and in the else case you'll write continue. Alright, so now what will happen? We are printing found only when I equals to 2, otherwise we are continuing, and we are breaking at that particular instant. So now we can say found. So let's say inside else we are also writing, instead of continue we are changing it. So you can also have a good look at this. Print is still searching. So still searching. It was I equals to 0, I was not equals to 2, 0 was not equals to 2, so it was not this condition was false, it was inside this, that was still searching. Then I became 1, whether 1 is equals to 2 or not, no, again this condition was false, again what was inside this condition, now it was still searching, and again I became 2, then 2 equals to 2, it has printed out found, and then it has breaked from this loop. So this is how break and continue work. So now what will happen if I use simply, instead of this, continue? You must remember the uppercase and lowercase, so it is something like this. So this is how in C we have already seen the break and continue statements. So this is how break and continue works in Python. So you must practice for these things. Thank you very much. I wish you a very happy and good day.